There are a number of deadly factions that reside in the lands between. Enemies hiding in the shadows come part and parcel with our journey, and an ambush should always be expected no matter where we roam. The most famous among these groups are arguably the Black Knife Assassins, but this is due to the prevailing knowledge that they were the perpetrators of the Night of Black Knives. There are also the Assassins of Ravenmount, who adopted the visage of the Deathbirds, cloaking themselves in feathers and wielding talons to bring death to those outlined in their contracts. Even the Recusants could be seen as a type of assassin, as they take orders directly from the Volcano Manor to put an end to the lives of other Tarnished. However, the Two Fingers had their own assassins long ago, a group of Tarnished nonetheless, whose duty it was to strike down their brethren who strayed too far from the guidance of grace. These men and women were known as the Confessors, and while the time of their prominence is long behind them, these shadow-clad Tarnished may have been the most deadly assassins of them all. Welcome back to the Elden Lore series, where we create weekly videos diving into the stories, people, places, and monsters of the lands between. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. We're glad you've stuck with us through what is almost 2 years of content creation. If it's your first time visiting the channel, welcome. We hope you're able to find whatever lore you're looking for, and if you don't, let us know in the comments and we'll see if we can dig into it for you. If you enjoyed today's video, please consider subscribing to the channel or joining our Discord, where our community comes together to share their love of FromSoft and gaming in general. Whether you subscribe or not, we appreciate you spending some time with us today. And with that said, let's get back to the topic at hand. The Confessor starting class was a popular one in the early days of Elden Ring. Its balance between casting and fighting is easy to manage, and it offers utility through its starting incantations, Urgent Heal, and Assassin's Approach. We can start our exploration of this faction here, as their robes give us our first glimpse at who these Tarnished were. Black leather armor for blending in with the darkness, worn by church confessors. The churches outside the lands between, dedicated to the teachings of the Two Fingers, send confessors out to follow the guidance of grace. The confessors are loyal servants to the Two Fingers, ready to hunt down and quietly dispose of their enemies. From this, we learn they are loyal servants of the Two Fingers, which makes sense considering their starting equipment and proficiency with faith. One of their starting incantations, Assassin's Approach, tells us more about their role. Incantation of the Two Fingers servants, who once served as the assassins of the Roundtable Hold, completely silences the footsteps of the caster, additionally reduces fall damage and the sound produced by falling. The assassins were charged with eliminating Tarnished, who had strayed from guidance. Between their armor and spells, we can understand that though the Confessors, as they are now, come from churches outside of the lands between that praise the Fingers, their allegiance is to the Hold, and they are not assassins for hire. They only hunt other Tarnished. This may seem reminiscent of the Recusants of Volcano Manor, but the difference is that the Recusants hunt down those that follow grace, while the Confessors hunt those who don't. Their title of Confessor comes from the way they became assassins for the Round Table. The incantation Darkness tells us, the assassins were themselves once Tarnished who had strayed from guidance, and they pursued their duty in the darkness that is without grace. With this knowledge, we can assume that the Confessors are those who quite literally confessed their sins to the Two Fingers, and were given a second chance to serve by becoming assassins. However, they would do so while no longer having the guidance of grace for themselves, presumably having lost it when they ignored the call. This does paint a somewhat contradictory picture though, as it seems that the Confessors existed before the Tarnished were banished from the lands between. Our assumption is that before Godfrey and the Tarnished were stripped of their grace, its guidance already existed across the land, but it must have served a different function as it now leads our Tarnished to great runes. So it was that these men of the cloth took the title of Confessor and hunted their fellows. One of the most interesting things about the Confessors is the tools of their trade. When you find the Twin Blade Talisman in Castle Morn, it depicts a Confessor and tells us, "The Twin Blade technique is a tradition of the Confessors, who closely guard the secret of how they preserve the momentum of their attacks. Thus is the final strike of their onslaught all the more deadly." While we never meet a Confessor that utilizes a Twin Blade, we can chalk that up to there being none left in the Lands Between at the time of our arrival, save for one specific man we'll discuss shortly. Along with their Twin Blades, the Confessors were known to wield crossbows and utilize Black Key bolts. Bolts used in Crepus's Black Key crossbow, an assassin's tool of exquisite craftsmanship. The intricate spiral tip bores deep, injecting scarlet rot far into the flesh of its target. We can see from these bolts that the Confessors were not afraid to utilize whatever tools necessary to complete their hunts, even turning to scarlet rot in order to make themselves more deadly. The Scorpion charms also mention their talismans, carried by assassins who strike unseen. And we think it's fair to assume that Scorpion imagery is also associated with the Confessors, as the Scorpion kite shield is emblazoned with a yellow scorpion, a warning of surprise attacks and sudden strikes. And the only Confessor we can meet wields the Scorpion Stinger, a dagger fashioned from a great scorpion's tail, glistening with scarlet rot, a ceremonial tool used by heretics, crafted from the relic of a sealed outer god. We've made mention of there not being any Confessors left in the Lands Between, save for one, and he's actually someone we've discussed in a previous episode of the Tarnished Files. While following the Volcano Manor questline, we come face to face with Riley the Idol, a man who wears the Confessor's robes and wields Crepus's Black Key crossbow. We invade his world on the path to the Shaded Castle, which makes sense as these assassins are known to utilize the rot in their tools, and what better place is there to gather it safely? Some have said that his proximity to the castle means that Riley may have been a member of the Murray family, the lords of the Shaded Castle, but we believe his connection to this land is strictly due to the poisonous rot it's covered in. We cannot find any solid evidence that he would be a member of this family, so we don't want to assume. What we do theorize about Riley, though, is that he is not using his true name. We believe Riley the Idol is actually the leader of the Confessors, Crepus. Riley does not use a twin blade as the other Confessors were known to. He prefers Crepus's bow. Black crossbow featuring a long stock, used for sniping. It has a very long range. Weapon of Crepus, who served the two fingers from the shadows of the Roundtable as the head Confessor. While we can find his bow in the Roundtable Hold behind an imp statue wall, we believe only one of these exists in each world, as it's said to be wielded by Crepus himself. This would mean if we face a Confessor in another world through a quest-related invasion, who attacks us with this weapon, it stands to reason that they may, in fact, be that world's Crepus. Upon defeating him, Riley also drops Crepus's vial, along with 20 Black Key bolts. The vial is known as a small mysterious bottle with a dark mist sealed within. Eliminates all sound made by the wearer during movement. A ritual implement used by Roundtable Hold assassins. There was a time when Tarnished, who strayed from guidance, feared nothing more than utter silence. Riley must have been a formidable man to have survived this long in the Lands Between, and with what we know of Crepus, it's perfectly reasonable to assume that a man of his skill could have used the shadows of the land blessed by the Erd Tree to keep himself alive, and continue the work he started long ago as a servant of the Two Fingers. The Confessors hold the unique distinction of being the only assassins specifically recruited by the Two Fingers. Those tarnished back in the days before the Long March, who stepped out of line and took it upon themselves to seek forgiveness, were placed in this prestigious, if not secretive, role, where they would essentially become pawns for the Fingers, likely following their orders as they were conveyed to them by the Finger Readers. Whether they chose this route because they were truly penitent can't be known for sure, but we believe many of them donned the robes more out of fear than loyalty. After all, There was a time when nothing was more terrifying to a renegade Tarnished than the sound of silence, and living with that constant dread likely took its toll on many a sinner. It's safe to say your options, should you betray the Roundtable Hold, were limited. Either take up the black robes and hunt those guilty of the same crimes you yourself committed, or accept a slow and painful death at the hands of your own kind, meeting your demise at the end of a twin blade, or feeling the rot overtake you, having never seen the face of your murderer hidden deep within the shadows. Thank you again for joining us for this week's Lore Dive. What do you think of the Assassins of the Roundtable, the Confessors? Did you run a Confessor build your first time through Elden Ring? Is Riley the Idol actually Crepus, the leader of their order? Were the recusants hunting Riley because he killed one too many of their brethren? How did the Confessors come to use the rot in their weaponry? Which faction of assassins do you believe is the deadliest? Please let us know your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell, and set notifications to all so you never miss out on any of our content. We look forward to seeing you again for more Elden Lore.